Right to this planning committee meeting. My name is Councillor Tim Ball. I'm chair of the committee. Can I ask opposite the top table to introduce themselves, please?
Good morning. I'm Karina Haskins from Democratic Services.
Good morning, I'm Sarah James. I'm Deputy Head of Planning.
Hello, I'm Simon Elias in the Council's legal team.
Thank you. Can I please remind council members of the public to switch off their phones or turn to silent, please. This meeting is being filmed and recording will be available on the council's website. Anybody speaking that does not wish to be filmed should make themselves known to the camera operator. Karina, emergency evacuation procedure, please.
Thank you, Chair. If the continuous alarm sounds, you must evacuate the building by one of the designated exits and proceed to the named assembly point. The designated exits are signposted. From this room, you use the main door and then the main exit of the building, and the assembly point is in the Orange Grove on the green outside Brown's Restaurant. Thank you.
Apologies for absent substitutions. I see we've got Councillor Ruth Malloy substituting for Councillor Toby Simon. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest in the room at all? None. Thank you. Urgent business agreed by the chair. There is none. Items for the public. Statements and questions. Karina.
So I'll just go through the procedure. Speakers will be called immediately after the case officer has made their presentation. The order of speakers and time allowed for speaking will be as follows. First, parish town councils, we don't have any today. Second, objectors to an application will be allowed 3 minutes in total. Then supporters of an application will be allowed in 3 minutes in total. Then ward councillors who have indicated they wish to speak can do so for a maximum of 5 minutes. And the speeches will be timed by the traffic light system you can see on the table in front of me. At the start, the light will be green. It will turn to amber when there is 1 minute of speaking time remaining. And when the light turns red, please conclude your remarks. Thank you.
Minutes of the meeting 2nd July. Can I see a mover, please? So move the minutes, please. Councillor Halsall, someone second, please. Okay, all those in favour? It's unanimous. Sorry, Eleanor. Okay, can we have that noted, please? Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you. That's all noted, thanks. Then we move on then to site visit applications list. There are none today. Then we have the main application list, 6 Southdown Avenue, Bath. Daniela, can you please introduce?
Thank you, Chair. So, item 1 on the agenda is 6 Southdown Avenue. Proposal for the change of use from a C3 dwelling house to a C4 6-bedroom HMO. Sites in Southdown, falls within the City of Bath World Heritage Sites. So just a verbal update before I go into the report. That changed the recommendation to delegate to permit with the addition of an obscure glazing condition to the bathroom windows out the rear, just as stated on the slide. So we've got site location plan, site outlined in red. The property is a semi-detached 2-storey property. The red star indicates where the closest bus stop is. And then we've just got a closer up aerial image, house indicated with the red point there. You can see, you can't see my cursor, there's a single-storey side garage which goes up to the boundary of the site, and you can also see the relationship with the neighbouring property, which is a corner plot, which creates kind of a triangle rear garden for the neighbour. And then we have the slide showing, which shows the HMO concentration test. So the concentration test is a requirement to confirm whether the change of use is acceptable in principle. There is currently a 7.5% concentration with HMOs in the 100-metre radius area. The proposed change of use would take this up to 8.3%, which is under the 10% policy threshold and therefore passes the concentration test. And then we've got some elevations. So at the top is existing and the bottom is the proposed. The garage is proposed to be converted into habitable space. So at the front, the garage door will be removed with the insertion of a window, and out the back would be a proposed new window to the garage as well. And then we have some floor plans. So again, at the top is existing and the bottom is the proposed. So 6 beds, all single rooms, and then shared communal living space. 3 bedrooms at the ground floor, 3 at the first floor, and 2 bathrooms, 1 on each floor. You can see the garage conversion there as well. And then we've got the site plan existing on the left, proposed on the right. And this is where we can see the additional parking space, which is proposed by removing half of the existing front garden. The 2 spaces are compliant with the Transport SPD. A question was raised by members yesterday regarding the parking standards and whether HMOs are comparable to C3 dwellings. The Transport SPD states that for HMO uses, parking standards for C3 dwelling houses should be applied. This assessment comes from a survey carried out in 2019, the Parking Survey Report for Student Accommodation and HMOs, which sets out the evidence base to confirm that the number of cars owned by HMO properties is comparable with standard family dwelling houses. So the proposal includes two parking spaces, which is considered to be compliant with maximum standards as set out in the SPD. And then we've got some site photos, so just showing the front of the property, and then on the right is again the front of the property, but from the west, looking towards the garage. And then we have the rear of the property. So on the left, we can see the garage. Now on site, members realised that work carried out to date is not accurate with the proposed plans. Just a reminder that what we are assessing today is what's shown on the plans in front of us. It has been clarified with the applicant that these issues will be rectified following if permission is granted. Just by note as well, you can see that the ground level of the neighbouring property is slightly higher. So yeah, the ground level for this is their rear garden. That is higher than number 6 Southdown Avenue, and obviously positioned at an angle as well. So officer recommendation is to delegate to permit the application with the addition of the obscure glazing condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now invite Martin Allsop to come forward? Presentation, please. You have 3 minutes as of now.
Good morning. I live next door to number 6. I wish to express my concerns as to the garage being turned into living accommodation. This will impact on our privacy and create more noise as we use this area quite often to sit out. There will be 6 non-family members, and obviously there'll be friends visiting on occasions. Also, they have blocked the back door, which I think you've already seen, to the garage, which is not on the plans, and they've put a window in that's not frosted glass. But the worry were they going to change the garage into 2 bedrooms then, if they're blocking the back door up? As to parking in the area, I've seen the lady said about the research in 2019 that there was no impact from HMOs. But the trouble is, since then, you've got the Lower Bristol Road has now become student accommodation, and because of the permit parking down in Oakville Park and Westmoreland, the cars are coming more and more out, and obviously you've got more cars because of the students, and in the evenings and weekends in Southdown Avenue, it's nearly impossible to park. So I recommend that this is refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Can I call Councillor Dina Romero, please? Okay, your time starts now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you for allowing this application to be decided by the committee and also for the site visit last week. I would like you to consider if there is sufficient amenity for the proposed numbers of occupants and whether there is likely to be reduced amenities for the neighbours at number 8 Southdown Avenue. From your visit, you saw the creation of 6 or possibly more small bedrooms being crammed into a 3-bedroom family house. In my view, this is inadequate accommodation for 6 or more adults and seems highly likely that the tenants will need to spend most of their time in the communal areas. However, these spaces also seemed undersized for the numbers of people expected to live and presumably study in this property. I worry about the quality of life for those tenants, as too many unrelated or even related people in too small a space is likely to lead to tensions within the house. Another area of concern which you saw is that what is being built is not what the new plans propose. I draw your attention in particular to the rooms in the garage. According to the application, the front room would be a bedroom and the rear room would be a small bathroom with a window alongside a corridor leading to a rear door. Instead, we saw 2 rooms with a window at the back, replacing an existing door. It does lead to the question, will this now be a 7-bedroomed HMO, i.e. one which would require additional permissions? I recall the original application was for a 7-room HMO. If this is the case, where will the additional bathrooms and the extra kitchen and communal spaces be placed? The garage is now a bedroom, or maybe bedrooms, which brings me on to another point, the impact on the neighbours at number 8 Southdown Avenue. As you saw from your visit, and you've just heard from Martin, their back terrace is considerably raised and abuts these rooms, and this will change how they wish to use this small private space. If the second room is a bedroom or a bathroom, the neighbours now run the risk of overlooking straight into this room or inadvertently causing noise or disturbance. This may put the only piece of private space for my residents out of use for them and their family. If the plan is to be approved, then I am pleased that one condition will be obscured glazing for that back room. But would you also ask that the window is put back to the position in the plan with a door to the back garden and the back room is converted to a bathroom as per the application? And just picking up the point about parking, the current RPZ rules actually are written in such a way that bars students who live within that zone from actually getting a permit. Therefore, the pressure on places outside of the zone is increased. So my preference, of course, is that you refuse this application on the grounds of unacceptable lack of amenity to the potential tenants and the reduction in private space to the neighbours. I would like to make one final point. There are already sui generis HMOs within the 100-metre radius, and it does seem extraordinary that the current concentration policy makes no difference between a 3-bedroomed HMO and one for 7 or more people. The difference to the community will be huge on everything from bins to parking. Actually, I have another point, which is turning affordable family housing into HMOs changes the community. It drives families out of the city, leading to greater congestion as they then travel in for work and education. As we have seen in other cities, as people leave the city, not only is it harder to fill vital but low-paid jobs in, for example, tourism, retail and hospitality, mainstays in our local economy, as these types of business are put at risk, as indeed are schools, since the places there won't be needed simply because families aren't there. So until there's a proper plan for more affordable houses in the city, alongside the more profitable care homes, residential homes, shared living and PBSAs, can we do more to resist more homes being turned into HMOs? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Romero. Can I now invite members to ask questions of officers, please? Councillor Halsall.
Thank you. Sorry to have my back to you, Danielle, as I ask questions. It's nothing personal. So my question is about the number of bedrooms or the number of occupants. Excuse me. Is it 6 or is it 7? And would it be possible to put a cap on that through a condition? And if it was going to be 7, are the size of the rooms to standard?
So the proposal has changed throughout the course of the application. It did start with 7 bedrooms. That has been revised and a bedroom removed. It is now for 6 bedrooms and therefore is a C4 HMO. If it were to be 7 bedrooms, that would be a sui generis HMO, and that would require separate planning permission. So, yeah, 6 bedrooms is the maximum that this can be without needing additional permission, so it's not required that a condition is necessary.
And there's a second question, are the rooms to standard?
Most of the rooms are to minimum space standards. They are single rooms. A couple of the rooms are shy by 0.1 square metre. They all do have provision for storage, which is also a requirement by national space standards, so it is considered that the rooms are compliant with policy D6.
Councillor Crosley.
Thanks. Can you just explain in more detail what the communal room size is and what it does? Because it seems to me that it's totally inadequate.
So the communal area is 23.3 square metres. That involves kitchen space, living and dining.
Sorry, can you say that again?
It's 23.3 square metres for the communal area. Includes living, kitchen and dining.
3 square metres. Thank you.
Councillor Gawley.
Yeah. Is it possible to clarify the distinction between sui generis, i.e. over 7 bedrooms, and the under 6 bedrooms? And are the sui generis, the larger ones, also included in the number of HMOs considered within the 100-metre radius?
So the C4 HMOs are for occupants of 3 to 6 individuals living at the property. Sui generis is a large HMO for 7+ bedrooms, individuals living at a property. Both C4 and sui generis HMOs are included within the concentration test. They are both counted as 1 unit.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is, can you show me how you take a bicycle to the bike storage area, please?
So the bike store is located in the rear garden. An occupier would need to bring their bike through the property from the back door through the communal area out the front door.
Sorry, can you show me on can
My
you
cursor is not
demonstrate?
working,
Okay.
but it would be from the rear door, which is open into the garden area, through that corridor, through the communal area, out the front door.
Do you feel that's practical?
It's not an ideal situation. The only location for the bike store to be located is in the rear garden, however.
Okay, thank you. And the issue of occupancy, we discussed 6 or 7. I mean, it seems more than coincidence that bedroom 6, it meets the standard for a 2-occupancy HMO room. Are we confident that there will only be 6 occupants in this building?
So that is what the permission would be for. If there would be 7 occupants in that property, that would be unauthorised use of the property, and that would be an enforcement issue. This permission allows for 6 occupants, not just 6 bedrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Malloy.
Thank you. Yeah, some of the questions you've answered. Just to go back to the bike storage, though, it said in the notes, I think, at least 4 bike storage places. But if they all had a bike, then you'd need more. My question was then about where will rubbish and recycling bins be kept, and where is the space shown for the clothes drying? And one more thing, just an explanation, because it's an acronym and not explained. On the proposed ground floor, the plan of the proposed ground floor, it's got WM/TD. Is that a cupboard, or it's part of the communal area, but can you explain what that acronym means, please? Okay.
So the waste is shown on the proposed site plan, lined up against the parking space, just on the right there, which shows provision for all the bins required. The drying space is considered to be achieved within either bedrooms or within communal areas or within corridors. And your third question, which is, oh, the acronym, I believe it's just a cupboard. Washing machine, tumble dryer. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just going to say, though, on the plan, again, there's a diagram. I suppose it's only indicating what's possible, but it's a table with places for 4 people. And presumably that would be right in the line of the people taking their bikes through. So not ideal. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Can I remind members questions, not comments at this point? Councillor McPhee.
Area of the communal area in relation to the number of people staying?
I believe so, yes. It's acceptable.
What would it be for 6?
I can't remember off the top of my head what the minimum is, but the bedrooms are just about meeting those standards, and the communal area, I believe, I have checked, but I don't know what the number is, sorry.
So we need to take an appointment, our own view on that.
It would be a subjective assessment based on Residential Community Policy D6.
Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Danielle, you mentioned in your introduction that when we went for the site visit, there was already a considerable amount of work that wasn't in accordance with the plans, and we have to assess this on the plans in front of us. One of the things that we noticed on the site visit was that the residential amenity, the communal area, was considerably smaller than is shown in those plans, given the way that things were going. Is there, if we gave permission based on those plans, is there any way of enforcing that communal area would in fact be a size that's acceptable, rather than, as we saw, just a very small kitchen with no apparent other space?
So on the site visit, we saw that the kitchen was still in situ. There had been no work to clear that kitchen to date. The works which had commenced were to the garage conversion, albeit not in accordance with the plans that you see today. The proposal does include pushing the rear wall of that kitchen back into that little alleyway. I don't know if you remember seeing that, which hadn't taken place yet. So the kitchen communal space would be bigger than what we saw on site. The plans, as you see today, would be listed in the plans list, and then a condition is added to ensure compliance with those plans.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I am a bit confused. I listened very carefully to what the resident said and the impact on him, because unfortunately I couldn't make the site visit, but I do know the area, and I couldn't understand what the situation is from what he said, from what the papers said, and from what you said about the back door and where it is, and bringing the bikes through from the back. Presumably they're to be stored in the back garden. That's the first question. If you could explain that, I'd be grateful. And the second question, I assume this development is right up to the boundary and there's no space to bring a bike round the house. So how are they going to deal with maintenance of that wall? I'd sort of thought you were meant always to have a space you could get a wheelbarrow through, never mind a bike. Is that incorrect? And what are they going to do if the gutter gives way on that wall?
So, just to explain the back door issue, so as you can see on the screen, the site photo, sorry, the sun's obscuring that a little bit. So, in this single-storey garage, there is currently a window that has been put there recently. There used to be a door there. Now, the proposed plans show where that window is to be a door with rear access into the garden. To the left of where that window is now is proposed to be an additional window serving a bathroom. The current back door, which is there now, is to be removed and blocked up, as that would form kind of the back of the kitchen. As previously mentioned, the bikes would be required to come from the back garden through the new back door in the position of that window currently and out through the front door. The question in relation to the maintenance of the boundary wall. So, as you can see currently, that garage wall does go up to the boundary of the property. Any maintenance to that wall or to the gutters would be a civil matter between residents and is not part of the planning process.
Councillor Gawley.
Thank you. It's a really interesting question, about the maintenance. My question is, how is the garden to be maintained if you can't get a lawnmower through, which you obviously wouldn't be able to take it through the living room, the kitchen, out the back door, through past the bathroom? And the question is how, what's going to happen with the garden waste as well? Does that have to take the same reverse flow? It does. So there is a question about how that space could be maintained for the benefit of residents.
So that issue, that situation is currently present at the site. There are no side access into the garden. So the maintenance of that garden as existing would have to be through the property. There's no external extensions proposed here.
Presumably currently you can go through the garage.
You would have to, so there, yeah, you would go through the garage. Yeah, and as proposed, you would need to go through the house.
Councillor Horsall.
It's probably a question for Dan regarding the bicycles. So obviously we know where the bike store is proposed to be, right at the bottom of the garden. If there are going to be 6 occupants, is it not standard that we should have 1 cycle space per occupant? And have we got a shortfall in this proposal?
Just to clarify, the Highway Authority didn't comment on this application, so I haven't reviewed in advance, so I can make just general points. My understanding, I'll have to read the policy again quickly now, but I believe that's in policy compliant level of parking.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll move to debate. Councillor Crossley's ward councillor, you are to enter the debate.
Thank you, Chair. At what point would you like me to move a recommendation? As part of my speech?
As part of your speech, you must.
Right. So I reach a completely different conclusion to the case officer on this application for a number of reasons. And first of all, can I apologise to the rest of the committee? While you were all enjoying a guided site visit, Councillor Ball and myself were stuck waiting at Terrace Walk for a council bus, which we hadn't realised had been cancelled. That's no one's fault. It was just a miscommunication, and we stuck there. But the officer did come and collect us and take us round, but unfortunately we couldn't get inside. But I have been inside a number of similar houses in this street over my years of being a councillor there. So what, excuse me. So what we have here is a really dense HMO application, and make no mistake about it, this is huge. This is 6 people in substandard rooms, at least 2 of which, I'm sorry, at least 2 of which, as far as I can see, do not meet minimum standard size requirements. So we're going to have 6 young people packed and crammed into insufficient space, living for a whole year or more if they stay there and like it, and they don't have adequate access to the back. They don't have adequate amenity within them. The one shared room is totally inadequate for 6 people. And what is also being built is not up to plan. So if Forest Green Properties are here, can I just say this is an example of outrageous greed and cramming stuff into an inappropriate building. So for the reasons I have outlined, I would like to remove refusal of this recommendation, contrary to the officer recommendation, and that's my view on it.
Councillor Horsall.
We haven't had a debate yet, but I'm very happy to second Councillor Crossley's motion. I'm appalled by this scheme. Now, let's just split it into 2 elements. First of all, we've got the we've got the policy on HMOs and the SPD that's associated with that. Now, yes, it complies with that policy in terms of no sandwiching and no more than 10% within a 100-metre radius. However, 8.3% is pretty close to the mark, and that is absurd. The other reasons I would support Councillor Crossley is, yes, we've got several rooms that don't comply with standard. Now, it may be nominal, but it just demonstrates that they are going to be inadequate. The communal area is too small for the 6 proposed occupants. It's absolutely ridiculous, the logistics of accessing the back garden. At the moment, you go through the garage. That will be removed. You will have to go through the communal area. As Councillor Gawley said, lawnmowers, bikes. The bike store is in a ridiculous location as well. I am very concerned also for the neighbours, and whilst the condition for the bathroom, if it is to be a bathroom, will have obscure glazing, it is still in very close proximity to their property in their garden. So whilst we won't be able to refuse this on the basis of the HMO policy in the development plan, I think we can refuse it on the grounds of amenity, both for the residents who would be living there and for the neighbours. So I think we could recommend refusal on the basis of policy D6.
Okay, we now debating the motion to refuse on the table. Councillor Jackson.
I think this is a very difficult one because of the principles involved and also, dare I say it, a certain amount of prejudice. We are assuming that this will be young people, but it could be nurses at the RUH. And I have to say, I think the situation, and I take on board everything that's been said about the limitations of this habitation, a condemnation of us that the rents are so high in the area and that nurses are often forced to live further and further away from where they work. We had 4 nurses in a family house in my road, and we never heard a peep from them because they were working so hard and then sleeping it off. I would actually like to know if the officer could tell us, the house in my road has been converted back to a family house. Are the works that are going to be performed on this house sufficiently radical to be irreversible, or would it be possible to convert it back at some future stage? So I think we should... I can't really see that we've got policies strong enough to justify a refusal, but I do take on board what the 2 speakers ahead of me have said. And I would like an answer to the question of whether you can convert it back. I think the point about the lawnmower perhaps is the decider for me, because you don't want a jungle growing up in that garden.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. I mean, I will be supporting the motion put forward by Councillor Crossley. I think this is an overdevelopment of a house that was never intended to accommodate this level of people or adults. Perhaps if the application had come forward for 4, perhaps that would have been suitable. 6 is a total overdevelopment. The viability of the layouts in terms of that, realistically, I don't see anyone taking a push bike through the entire house and through the lounge to access the storage area. That's more likely to encourage people to use a car, if anything. The convenience of a car certainly outweighs the convenience of trying to get a bike through the house. So I don't think the communal space is in any way adequate. 23 square metres to combine your dining, your kitchen and your social space for 6 people plus potentially visitors is completely unrealistic. So for all the reasons being given, I'm happy to support this motion.
Any further speakers? Councillor Malloy.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple of other thoughts. When you said that the drying area would basically be inside the house, I think that's generally discouraged in, well, anywhere because of the possibility of damp being caused. And yeah, I agree with Councillor Hughes that it's overdevelopment, and if a smaller number of bedrooms have been an HMO with a smaller number of bedrooms had been applied for occupants, I might have supported it, but I don't think I can. So I will be supporting Councillor Crosney's motion. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Jackson.
If I could just ask a question of the officers. Are we not, I mean, I think the speakers have brought up some very valid criticisms indeed of the accommodation that's going to be offered. But I'm wondering if that isn't actually a commercial question and students or nurses or whoever will just take a look and say, where am I going to dry my clothes, and not take the property. Are we putting too much weight on what is offered when it is a market matter?
Okay, I'm going to allow Danielle to answer very briefly. I wouldn't normally break protocol, but on this occasion, Councillor Jackson, as is you, I'll allow it.
There is reference in policy H2 to require drying spaces for occupants.
Okay, any further speakers? Then we'll move to the vote on the refusal on this item. Karina, do you have the details? Or ask Councillor Crosby to remind us, please. Can you remind us the exact reasons for refusal, please, so we've got it in front of us?
Reasons for refusal are overdevelopment of the site, insufficient amenity for the occupants, loss of amenity for the neighbours, loss of privacy for the neighbours, and I think that's nothing. That did you add anything else on that?
Well, it's basically D6, yeah.
And D6.
Okay, we're going to vote on the motion to refuse. Those in favour? That is unanimous. The item is refused. We now move on to the next item on the agenda, High Banks Street, Stowey. Angus, when you're ready.
Good morning, everybody. So for item number 2, we are looking at permission in principle for 2 dwellings at a property known as High Banks on the street near Stowey. Okay, well, I mean, we'll see how we get along. So I put up 2 site plans up on screen. I can appreciate it's quite difficult to see. I've outlined the application site in red with the semi-detached property here. You can make out the existing outbuilding within the rear garden, which is proposed to be removed. A contextual site plan, which again shows the property outlined in red here to show the street adjacent or nearby to the nearest settlement here, which is Bishop Sutton. The drawings are quite limited on this one, as expected, because it's permission in principle. There is no fleshed out design of floor plans or elevations at this stage. So we have the existing site plan up on screen, and the proposed site plan. It is still indicative at this stage. The design on screen may come forward at a later date, or it may be completely revised for technical details. At this stage, we just can't assess matters of design. But you can clearly make out the idea, which is for a semi-detached property. This is a private access, which has a right of access for the existing owner of High Banks and its neighbour. And the idea is to increase the usage for the new properties, but a legal agreement would need to be agreed with the actual owner of that. But you can see use of the driveway and then parking spaces at the rear, semi-detached property with subdivided garden space. Some photographs looking south along the street itself towards the site. So the site has a slightly raised ground level versus the main road, and it's well screened by a lot of this vegetation here. This photograph was taken along the private drive. Just for reference, it was taken from about here, looking up this part of the driveway. The site itself, looking across the garden space, showing the existing semi-detached properties in the background and then the outbuilding in the foreground. The front boundary, or the boundary with the main road, has the fence and then the rest of the mature vegetation you can see from this side. And then a wide-angle shot, again, of the site. And then, as requested, this is a street view screenshot of the street further up. This is the route towards the main road, where the nearest bus stop would be. And then, for the reasons set out in the report, this one is recommended for permission.
Thank you, Angus. Can I invite speakers to come forward, please? The statement, Mr. and Mrs. Webb, Karina will read out, please.
Thank you, Chair. We got a statement from objectors, Mr. and Mrs. Webb, who were unable to attend. Whilst we have a number of concerns, our primary objections relate to access to the potential new properties. There will be no direct access to the front of the properties from the street. Access to the properties for pedestrians and vehicles will be via a single-track access lane, which already serves vehicles for 5 properties and for public footpath, and a private driveway serving 2 properties out of the 5. The access lane is unmade, hardcore and unlit. 2 additional properties will constitute 40% increase in the number of properties served by the access lane. The properties themselves could add at least 4 private vehicles, as per the parking spaces indicated on the plan. There are no passing spaces on the single-track access lane. The areas either side of the lane are privately owned, and driving over them constitutes trespass. Increasing the number of properties served by the access lane, and therefore vehicles, would increase the potential for vehicles having to reverse back onto the street in the event of contention. The turning area at the end of the access lane is very limited due to the recent development of the piggery. 2 additional properties would significantly increase the total number of vehicles using a single-track access lane and exiting onto the street, due to there being no access to the front of the properties on foot directly from the street. Visibility on exiting the access lane onto the street is poor and particularly limited with regards to traffic coming down Stowey Hill on this side of the road. More vehicles exiting the access lane will increase the safety risks. Finally, given that there will be no direct access from the street to the front of the properties and the only access would be via the private access lane and the driveway, as per Bain's Recycling Collection Service operational guidelines, all recycling would need to be left where the access lane adjoins the street. This could either pose a safety issue for users of the public highway and/or an obstruction for users of the access lane. And that's the statement from Mr. and Mrs. Webb.
Okay. Kevin Morley, are you present? Can you please come seat, please? Okay, your time starts now.
Thank you, Chair. Plan officers have worked diligently on this application and have provided a finely balanced report and recommendation, which we hope is accepted by members following your deliberations. As explained in the report to committee, the permission in principle route to planning consent is a 2-stage process, with the land use principle matter considered now and all other technical details to follow in a separate application. And just to follow up on that statement, and that would include matters of access and reuse of the existing access which serves the houses already. In this instance, the land use principle is dependent on the location being considered one that is sustainable. And that assessment of sustainability should be one that takes account of the vision for the site, the type of development and its location. The scheme is for 2 additional domestic dwellings as part of a rural settlement within reach of Bishop Sutton, which hosts the local facilities. In this case, features including electric vehicle charging points can be incorporated into the technical details applications following the permission in principle, along with vehicle and cycle parking as per requirements of the development plan. Cycling is a legitimate alternative to trips to the surrounding area and Bishop Sutton, which is a comfortable 3-minute cycle journey away from the site, and well within the average cycle times and distances indicated within the most recent National Cycle Survey. That range would also include Chew Magna, Chew Stoke, Clutton and Temple Cloud. So simple local trips and leisure rides are a realistic option, and I think this is evidenced by the amount of leisure cyclists you see on the A368. Given this and the vision for the site for 2 rural homes, the proposals cannot be considered any less sustainable than the other properties in Stowey, and it is therefore hoped that members will agree with your planning officers and support the recommendation to approve permission in principle. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Can I call Councillor David Harding, please? Councillor Harding, your time starts now.
Thank you. I note that the result of the lack of a 5-year housing land supply and the planning sequelae following from this fact that you're most likely to permit this development. However, I feel it was important to come here today to try to establish 2 points of principle that have bearing on this application and therefore its assessment. One is that Stowey is not a sustainable village for planning purposes, and 2, that this site should be considered therefore as greenbelt. The application has stated in numerous places that Stowey should be considered as a sustainable village, and thus that the site should be considered grey belt for planning purposes under the NPPF definition. Paragraph 155C of the NPPF states that development of homes in the green belt should also not be regarded as inappropriate where the development would be in a sustainable location, with particular references to paragraphs 110 and 115 of this framework. NPPF paragraph 110 says that development should be focused on locations which are or can be made sustainable through limiting the need to travel and offering a genuine choice of transport modes. However, opportunities to maximise sustainable transport solutions will vary between urban and rural areas. Paragraph 155 of the NPPF states that in assessing sites that may be allocated for development or specific applications for development, it should be ensured that sustainable transport modes are prioritised, taking account of the vision of the site, the type of development and its location. Policies ST1 and ST7 of the Baines Local Plan Partial Update seek to secure development which is located where there are genuine and realistic opportunities to travel by sustainable modes of transport. Safe, active travel and walking or cycling is limited by the nature of the busy roads, blighted by speeding, by the lack of footpaths and the lack of lighting. Reliance on the car in Stowey is a fact of life. Public transport is extremely limited and financially insecure. Local amenities are much further than described in the application, and other services and employment opportunities even further away. Any development in Stowey is contrary to the key aims of policy ST1 and ST7 of the LPPU, and many of the policies of the Stowey-Sutton Neighbourhood Plan, all of which seek to ensure that developments are well connected and provide a genuine travel mode choice. Given the significance of the above concerns, I am glad to see that the Highway Authority has also recognised that the site is not in a sustainable location. I believe, therefore, that the site should not be considered grey belt as not in a sustainable location. The presence of other houses in a hamlet does not negate this fact. Thus, this site application should be considered as located in the green belt for future planning decisions. If I may also point out, it's been incorrectly stated in your pack that the site sits outside the green belt. If you look at page 28, first sentence, for example, in this instance, the site is situated outside a defined housing development boundary and the green belt. This is incorrect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Questions from officers, please. Councillor Jackson.
I was wondering whether the officers had taken into account modern living and that the sort of little family group that might live in these houses would presumably do their shopping, because it says there's no lack of facilities in the area. They're presumably doing their shopping over the internet. Has any account been taken of the fact you might get delivery vehicles from, well, we know the well-known companies, coming up this lane, and how would they do it? Is there a turning head, or, you know, you think of the average internet delivery van from a well-known supermarket, how's it going to get?
Yes, limited consideration has been given to resource sharing, as you mentioned, for shopping deliveries to multiple properties in the street, postal deliveries, modern day living with work from home. But we do still have our policies regarding sustainable locations within, or outside of housing development boundaries, which does take precedent where we're making these decisions. As for shopping deliveries as such, I would assume that the smaller vans could get up that driveway. I had no problems traversing it myself, although my car is a hatchback, not a delivery van. But it would be the same situation as the existing properties are already using for their deliveries, with the larger vans probably parking up on the street and then walking up the driveway, or the smaller ones reversing or manoeuvring on the land itself.
Councillor Horsall.
Could this be regarded as infill, as there are properties in all to the three sides of it?
It meets some definitions of infill, but not others. It meets our definition, policy D7, that meets the definition of infill there, and I believe, although I don't have the wording in front of me, it meets the NPPF definition as well, where Greenbelt's concerned. It does not meet the neighbourhood plan policy of neighbourhood plan's definition of infill, which requires infill to be within housing development boundaries. So it meets some definitions, but not others. Broadly speaking, yes, it is amongst other housing, and that has been given some consideration, but it doesn't strictly meet all definitions of infill.
Councillor Horsall.
Thank you. And again, apologies, Angus, for having my back to you. It's following on from Councillor Gawley's question about infill, and obviously you've said it is infill in some interpretations of policy and not in others. Could you just clarify on Councillor Harding's point about the status of the land? Is it green belt or is it even grey belt? And then a second question is, does this constitute previously developed land because there's a building on there at the moment and it forms part of a curtilage of a dwelling?
Yeah, absolutely. No, Councillor did highlight an error in my report, where I did say in that specific paragraph that it's outside the housing development boundary and the green belt. That's meant to read and is within the green belt. I believe I've mentioned that it is within the green belt several other points in the report. Just to clarify, it is within the green belt. The site is within the green belt. As the site has been found to be unsustainable by location, it doesn't meet the tests of grey belt, as the councillor referred to in his speech. So it is not grey belt. It is, however, previously developed land, which is something set out within the report. I've included the definition just for clarity, because it is within a residential garden land, within a rural area, with an existing building on site. What this means for not this application, but a potential future technical details application, is that the two dwellings, once their designs have been fleshed out properly, would need to avoid causing substantial harm to the openness of the greenbelt. So that will be a key test at a later date if this permission in principle was to be approved.
Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. I think that broadly answered a lot of my questions. I'm still not sure where we are in terms of the grey belts, in terms of how much weight we give to that as a definition. I mean, I know we've been given presentations on the definition of grey belts, but in terms of using it to actually apply it.
Grey belt, it's not grey belt in this case. So for this application, you're not giving weight to grey belt. Just generally speaking, if something was found to be grey belt, that means it's appropriate development in the green belt. That doesn't mean it's outweighing harm, it just means it's appropriate straight up. But that's not the case. In this case, it's not grey belt, but it is considered to be previously developed land.
Okay, so the applicant implies that it's grey belt in his application. That was why I mentioned that.
Yeah, no, and I did the same.
And you disagree with the
yeah.
applicant in terms of the grey belts? Okay, thank you. And could you just clarify where we are in terms of the arboriculture team's request for detail on the trees?
That's something we will expect as part of technical details, just because at this stage we're just assessing whether a principle is possible. A design could come forward that is nowhere near any trees, doesn't impact any trees. So at this stage, we don't require those details, but for a technical details application, if the development was to impact trees, we would need the full realm of surveys, arboricultural impact assessments, tree protection plans, whatever may be necessary. But that's once we have a exact site plan in front of us for what is exactly being applied for at that stage.
Thank you. So could I just clarify that point? So assuming we gave the application, we passed the application as a PIP application, and subsequently the survey comes back and our arboriculture team aren't happy with that, we still have sufficient strength in this to be able to refuse the application?
Yes, absolutely. A technical details application acts very similar to a reserve matters application following an outline. All details will need to be found acceptable at that time, or it would be refused for whatever the reasons might be. So yes, we can be comfortable in approving something, relying on those matters to come forward suitably at the technical detail stage.
Councillor Malloy?
Thank you. Yeah, I think you more or less answered my question too, but I was just wanting to know, so with this permission in principle application, we're only supposed to be considering the location, following your notes, location, land use and the amount of development. So when you say amount of development, does that mean that the number of dwellings, or is that something that can change? So when it comes to the technical details application, if approved, and it came to that, it wouldn't necessarily be 2 semi-detached, it could be 4 houses with, could it? I mean, that's the question. Thank you.
It's up to the number that's being applied for, so they could apply for 1 or 2, but if they wanted to go for a higher number, they would again need a new permission in principle or a new full. So we are limited to 2 for the technical details.
Councillor Collins?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for your presentation. I just wanted to ask about the planning balance in this case. Here we've got an application site that's unsustainable. It's contrary to policies ST1 and ST7, but you're recommending acceptance, and as I read the planning balance section, that is because we can't demonstrate a 5-year housing supply. So does that mean that we're in a position that, had we been able to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, we could look more closely at ST1 and ST7? Sorry for the...
Yes, yeah. Short answer is yes. If the council was currently able to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, this would likely be recommended for refusal, contrary to those policies. But where the tilted balance applies, because we can't demonstrate that 5 years, that's where we have applied the test, which is within the planning balance section. I'll just read it out quickly. permission should be granted unless adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So it's not just a simple matter of the adverse impacts outweighing, they would need to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, briefly.
Sorry, just one very quick question. I note that the parish council note this doesn't meet the aims of their neighbourhood plan policies, and they've suggested that there should be a condition to restrict the amount of bedrooms on this development. Is that feasible on a PIP application to put in a?
Not a PIP, because anything could come forward at this point to determine. They could come forward with 2 six-bed houses or two single-bed bungalows. We just can't assess that at this stage. That will be something for the technical details application.
Okay, just bring under question then, do you think whether a PIP application is the right process to determine this, as there's so much information missing and so many issues that we can't control within this application?
I don't think I can answer that question. I might look to Sarah for a bit of help.
We can't refuse to determine the application. There's a process available for applicants to apply through this PIP, and we have to make a decision based upon the information we have.
Councillor McPhee.
How much weight do you give to the speaker who said that really Chew Magna, Bishop Sutton are reachable quite straightforwardly by riding a bike? How much weight do you give to that?
Leisure cycling, we haven't given much weight to that in terms of the sustainability qualities of the site, just because you wouldn't ride your bike to do your weekly shop, or you might not do it every day for work, or you might do. It's only been given limited weight because it will be quite car dependent in this area due to its location, the lack of public transport nearby. But of course, you know, there are cycling routes, but that could apply anywhere.
Councillor Jackson.
As the question of sustainability is so crucial, should we not be considering, or is it not appropriate, the Council's active travel policy for walking and cycling as a means of getting around the local area? And should we not be looking at the perhaps more important framework, the WECA plans for improving the A368 and improving routes for walking, I believe? But it could be that the WECA Mayor has plans to lay on the bus service to Bishop Sutton. So should we not be considering that possibility? And my other area of concern is I don't really know this area frightfully well. Should we not be having a site visit?
Sarah?
Thank you. Plans that we have available can be material considerations. If they do not form part of the planning policy framework, they can still be material considerations to take into account. What we can't take into account is plans that may not have happened, for example, something that might be being considered by WECA but isn't actually in place. That wouldn't be something we could look at. We have to determine the application based upon what is available now.
Councillor Horsall.
Thank you for a second question. It's going back to your report, page 30, regarding the planning balance and the line about permission should be granted unless adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Obviously, we haven't got the 5-year housing land supply. But obviously, I'm noticing from the report that we have an objection from the Highway Authority. So would that, obviously, your recommendation is to override that objection. What degree of balance have you given to the fact that the Highway Authority have objected?
Their objection is based on lack of sustainable location, which is a matter that I agree with. So it's not a matter of overriding the comments, it's weighing the harms up in the balance of the benefits. Does that answer your question suitably? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Malloy.
Thank you. Sorry, just a kind of follow-up question to what I asked before, really, about at the moment the PIP application would allow up to 2 dwellings. In this case, they're shown as potentially semi-detached houses, but when it comes to it, it's not going to restrict the number of bedrooms in each, is it? So it could be like 2 one-bedroom bungalows, or it could be 2 small blocks of flats, potentially. Is that, as long as the height wasn't too, is that a possibility? In which case, more occupants would mean more people needing to get there and needing cars, potentially.
You are correct, yes. It's not bound by bedroom numbers at this stage, but the technical details application will need to be found suitable. Again, it will need to be compliant with policy. And again, we have the sort of I want to say, safety net of the Greenbelt policy of previously developed land, where the development cannot, let me find the wording again just to quote it properly.
Okay, any further questions?
Substantial harm. It cannot cause substantial harm to the openness of the Greenbelt, so we'll still have that test.
Okay, any further questions? Nobody? It's now open debate, please. Councillor Horsall.
I'm no longer on the top table. I'm chomping at the bit to sort of say what I want to say and express my opinions. Councillor Harding said this right at the beginning of his statement. We know the site's unsustainable. Obviously, that's been demonstrated by the fact that the Highway Authority have objected. But I'm going to remind the committee about an appeal decision that came through 2 weeks ago for Hartley Wood for 8 dwellings in Clutton. Completely unsustainable location, totally car dependent. But the inspector said, because we don't have a 5-year housing land supply, that overrides everything else.
Councillor Jackson.
Well, I think that Councillor Horsall has put his finger on the problem, and I can't see strong enough reason for objecting to this application, so I'll move the officer's recommendation on the grounds that the officer has given.
Okay, it's been moved. Do I seconder? Seconded? Councillor Warren seconded. No, you speak now.
Sorry, has it been seconded, Chair?
No, we have a seconder.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, I mean, to me, this is sort of the next stage in the planning process is, with the pit. There's been questions about what may or not be thereafter, but I think that's irrelevant, actually, at this process, because that will come again with a full planning permission. I noticed that the Parish Council didn't object to this. The sustainability is always, it is what it is, sadly, in these villages. However, Bishop Sutton isn't far away, and you've got the post office in Bishop Sutton. You've actually quite got a big shot there as well now. So I'm very happy to second this.
Councillor Gawley.
Yeah, so I'm ward councillor for 13 parishes south of Bath, most of which are rural, and a number of which have got villages which are so-called unsustainable. Yet the majority of them do want more housing, not massive housing estates, but they want houses for young people to be able to stay in the village, for older people to downsize into. So I would encourage this. Frankly, it's not that far from Bishop Sutton regarding the unsustainability or otherwise, but I think it's a good use of the land, and it is infill, and there is already a dwelling on it. So providing that we can ensure that this is, potentially 2 small cottages, then I think that would be a positive contribution to the area.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. I mean, I will be supporting this, but I mean, I'm not a fan of PIP applications. There's too much, or we don't know about this to really make an informed decision. So I would prefer an application come through which gives us details of the height, the massing, the appearance, that gives us more confidence that it meets our objectives of the green belts, particularly as it is in the green belt and it is outside the housing boundary. But as has been pointed out by Ian, we have got this 5-year plan around our necks at the moment. So on that basis, I will be supporting the application.
Councillor Crossley.
Just a point of clarification. Councillor Jackson moved a site visit. I don't know if that was seconded.
No, she didn't. No, she
Pardon?
didn't. She moved the recommendation.
Oh, she moved the recommendation. Sorry, I misheard. I was going to say I'll support her site visit.
Councillor Collins.
Sorry. I mean, I find this really sad, actually. I mean, I take Councillor Gawley's point about the need for housing in the villages, but we are in a position where this is down a very tricky, narrow road that would be hard to walk along. Both of the officers recognise this is an unsustainable location. However, I feel that we'll have to support the motion because we are in this position of not having 5-year housing land supply, and it's something that we need to work on as soon as we can, I guess.
Councillor Crossley.
Yes, Chair. I reached a different conclusion from what seems to be the growing consensus around the panel. I think this is an unsuitable, unsustainable location with narrow country roads, and I think it's inappropriate to be adding extra houses and therefore extra traffic to this location.
Okay, Councillor Jackson, you're the last speaker.
Well, I just wanted, I did suggest we might have a site visit, and I think if we have the technical details come in, that will be the appropriate time for us to go and have a look at the trees and so on. But at the moment, we're not being asked to decide that. I would point out, with great humility, that this is the kind of area where it's possible, where the residents could get together and organise a community bus. They did have one running from Bishop Sutton into Bristol for the young people on a Friday night. We've got a little yellow bus going around the Soma Valley up to the park and ride, which the Polton Town Council organised. So it's not completely unsustainable, and where there's a will, where there's a will to make life better for residents, I'm sure it can be done. So I hope people will support the resolution that I put on the table, that we accept subject for the reasons given by the officer.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to approve. Those in favour, please. That's 9 against, 1 against. That's carried. Do you wish a break at the moment? Can we have 5 minutes then, please? Okay, we'll restart. Councillor Lloyd's returned. Parcel land 6200, Morford Lane, Chid Magna, Bristol. Angus, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so item number 3. Just wait 1 minute. So this one, we are on Moorledge Lane, near to Chew Magna. So the change of use from agricultural field to a secure dog walking field with associated fencing, perimeter fencing, a single-storey mobile field shelter, and some smaller bits and bobs that are included within the report itself, just not the description. The field highlighted the main bulk of the field here, parcel 6200 with the red line boundary. It has a access coming out the north, running along the side of that tree line to connect with the road. I thought I had another slide which showed just that piece, my apologies. Here's a more zoomed out image just for context with Chew Magna up to the northwest. Yes, here they are. So a slightly more detailed version of the site plans as proposed. The perimeter fencing, the annotations I appreciate are small on this image for you to read now. The perimeter fencing will obviously follow the perimeter. An image of the field shelter is shown there with an annotation citing it in the top corner of the site, where the access will come into the site as well, with some secure metal gates and a small parking area up at the northern end of the site, adjacent to the road access here. Sectional details of the fencing themselves and an example image to show it's going to be timber posts with metal wire fencing, just to keep the field secure. Some images of the existing fence, the example image of the field shelter, which is on skids, as you can see in the image there. Some more photos just looking through the gate into the site itself, showing the shelter up in place and then the open field. The access driveway and the parking area has already been outlined with some fencing put up. And this one is recommended for permission, and I've included a list of conditions up on screen. So approval subject to condition.
Thank you, Angus. Now the speakers now. Barnaby Paul Bonner, please. Your time starts now.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I had. We are an experienced practice who undertake numerous projects within the Chew Valley area. Secure dog walking fields are becoming very popular and offer a safe environment for dogs to play, exercise and be trained without external influences such as other dogs, livestock or people. These facilities are much sought after and cater to all manner of dogs and dog owners. This is evidenced by the 16 supporting comments for this application. The application site is surrounded by a network of public right-of-ways which are regularly used by dog walkers. The walking of dogs is not new or unheard of in the countryside. The application is supported with a very well-written and comprehensive management plan that clearly sets out how the proposed business will operate daily. The proposed change of use is policy compliant, and there are numerous precedent examples across Baines and North Somerset of similar secure dog fields that are located within the Greenbelt. The facility adjacent to Flourish Farm Shop in Keynsham is a good example. The proposed use is acceptable under Greenbelt policy as it provides outdoor recreation without causing any visual harm to the Greenbelt. There have been no objections from arboriculture, ecology or highways to these proposals. There is no impact to the existing trees or hedgerows. The proposals allow for 95 metres of new hedgerow, the intensification of the existing hedgerow and new wildflower meadows, all of which enhance the biodiversity of the field. This equates to a 16.5% increase in habitat units and a 44% increase in hedgerow units. The access is existing and has been used for many decades by all manner of farm vehicles and machinery without any incident. The proposals have no visual impact on the local area as the field remains a field. The fencing is agricultural in appearance and the access track is minimal, while still allowing grass to grow through, thus maintaining a green, field-like appearance. The field is entirely Grade 3 agricultural land, with no part of the field being Grade 1 or Grade 2. I would like to point out that we also have a signed letter of apology from the Chair of the Chew Magna Parish Council, which admits to misunderstanding the process and wrongdoing in the handling of this application.
Can I actually hold you there, please? You're on the application, nothing else.
Okay. That's fine. The reason this has been brought to committee is because of these shenanigans. So in summary, the proposed change of use will enable a much sought-after facility to open without any adverse impact on the landscape setting. The green field will still be a green field. The application is planning policy compliant with no objections from highways, ecology or arboriculture. There are numerous planning precedents for this type of local resource. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor David Harding.
Thank you. I'm objecting to this application on behalf of residents who actually live nearby and the parish council for reasons of amenity, sustainability of transport and access. With respect to amenity, as the government webpage on nuisance from dogs states, dog barking can be a serious annoyance if it happens frequently or for prolonged periods. A single dog bark is apparently typically between 80 to 100 decibels and can easily be heard hundreds of yards away. The applicant's management plan states that up to 6 dogs may be allowed on the field at any one time. While the provision of hedges provides some buffering of noise, this effect is quite small, around 3 to 10 decibels from my reading of the literature, and is found best achieved with dense conifers rather than mixed hedging of predominantly deciduous growth, as is found here. It's clear that the facility is used, if the facility is used as much as the applicant suggests, there will be at least frequent, very audible barking. This development is therefore likely to cause significant disturbance and irritation to neighbouring residents, the majority of whom have objected. In the core strategy policy, PCS2, development will only be permitted where it does not have a significant effect on quality of life or general amenity. And also policy D6, which says development must cause no significant harm for reason of increased noise. In addition, the Chew Valley Neighbourhood Plan, item A7, describes an aspiration for tranquility, which is not met here. With respect to sustainability of transport and access, the applicant's management plan states that many users will walk rather than drive. This is fanciful. The site is distant from local population centres, and owners of dogs that need a secure site will clearly drive. Access to the site is via a single-track lane, in some places only 3 metres wide, not much wider than this table. I drove it yesterday, with high banks in places. There is no room for passing in some places, on some stretches of the road. The development is contrary to core policies ST 1.2 and 1.6, which aim to reduce car dependency and its impact. If the committee's decision is to accept the application, please kindly consider a reduction in opening hours first thing in the morning and at weekends and bank holidays to protect the nearby residents from some of the inevitable noise and disturbance. In addition, I note that the wildflower planting providing some biodiversity net gain is not fenced off from the dog exercise area. The flora will clearly be damaged by dogs running over it, and ask that the panel consider ensuring that this area of the field is fenced off. In addition, I would also ask the committee to consider ensuring that this site is redesignated as agricultural land should its proposed use as a day exercise field end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Now we're down to questions to officers. Councillor Gawley.
As I previously referenced, I'm ward councillor for a number of rural parish councils, one of the biggest issues that they have is dog walkers in recreational areas and the disposal of dog poo. The question I have for this is what's going to happen with the dog poo that's going to be produced by the dogs using this field, and who pays for the removal of this? Because if this is, I would not want any, sorry, I'll leave it at that. Who pays for it?
A bin is being provided on site, so users will be expected to pick it up as they go, as they use it. I would have to check the management plan again properly. I believe the management plan sets up that the owners would dispose of the, clear the bins, but I can't remember that off the top of my head.
Sorry, and when you clarify that, can you clarify who then clears the bins, and is this going to end up being a responsibility for the parish council or for Baines?
As it's privately owned, it would be the responsibility of the owner to keep their land tidy.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Hi, Angus. Well, first of all, could you clarify what is the distance to the nearest residential from this field?
I believe that was 50 metres to Apple Hay, which...
Sorry, how many, sorry?
50.
15?
50, 50.
50. Okay, thank you. Could I say, and secondly, could you clarify this land clarification? Is it free or free A?
3A.
3A. So, my understanding, the NPPF designates 1, 2 and 3A as effectively high quality agricultural. Is that correct?
That's correct, but our local plan just clarifies grade 1 and 2 within the policy as being the highest grade.
Our local
So
plan does, but the NPPF, which is, I guess, the overarching policy here, has a different definition of 3A to ours.
Correct, yeah.
Which one do we use?
If there's a conflict, I believe we'd prefer up to the NPPF.
Okay, so perhaps some clarification on what the NPPF 3A designation is would be helpful.
The most recent and up-to-date version of the planning policy is what we will be using. So that's what you've assessed it against, the local plan.
In our local policy, yes.
Sorry, I'm not sure you've answered the question. If the overarching document that we should be applying is the NPPF, could you clarify what the NPPF classifies in relation to 3A grade and the use of 3A grade? Is that possible?
The NPPF classifies 3A as being the better quality, as being within the highest. That is different to our local policy. In this case, we've taken a pragmatic approach where, whilst the use will lose the land for agricultural use, it's not being developed as such, so it would be revertible in the future if the use did cease. But it's not a perfect black and white situation. There is a bit of grey in the middle there. So that's the approach we've taken.
Councillor Jackson.
Well, I was going to ask much the same question because it came in connection with the solar farm in Old Mills, Poulton, and I think it's a very important consideration in the present geopolitical situation that we preserve agricultural land. But anyway, that's really for the debate, I suppose. What I wanted to ask was, how is this, the conditions on the time frame that you can exercise your dog there, going to be monitored or controlled or whatever? How will you be sure that the owners of 6 dogs exit, and it could potentially, could it not, overlap with the arrival of another 6 dogs? And what will happen if we have a dog fight?
The management plan sets out that there is an online booking system, so people can't just turn up. They will need to book ahead of time, so numbers can be limited through the system. If someone's booked it, then it will be unavailable for other users for that time bracket. I believe the management plan sets out that the booking has a bit of a 10-minute buffer window from one person finishing and the other one starting. If we would be seeking to condition compliance with the management plan that sets out the opening hours, that sets out the booking system. If there were to be uses outside of those hours, it would be in breach of condition and subject to our enforcement team to have a look at. As for the matter of dogs fighting, that will be something for the owners and people on site to manage as and when that happens. There is a complaints procedure available through the booking system, again, I understand. So if there is particular trouble with particular individuals on repeating occasions, then those users can be vetted out from booking in the future, is my understanding.
Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thanks. I've probably missed it somewhere, but can you tell me how big the paddock is?
I actually cannot. I don't have measurements to hand. And my apologies.
Councillor Gawley.
Sorry, I may have missed this, but is there going to be lighting? So for sort of autumn, winter evenings, is there going to be lighting in what is currently an unlit space?
No lighting is proposed.
Councillor Crosley.
Thank you, Chair. Sustainability access transport, it seems to indicate there's going to be up to 9 cars possibly could be parked here. You can only have 6 dogs. A lot of people with dogs have more than 1 dog. So how is this going to be monitored and enforced?
The parking space, as shown on screen, only provides space for 2. There is an additional space shown further within the site near to the field shelter, and I believe that would be for the owner to come and go for maintenance purposes and monitoring, not for users of the site. Could you remind me the second part of your question, sorry?
How is it going to be monitored, the second part?
Again, I believe that would happen through the booking system, so the booking system would only allow certain numbers to book their slot. That would deter multiple bookings all at the same time, as you just wouldn't be able to do it. If people were to ignore the numbers and just turn up anyway, that would be something to, again, refer through our enforcement team, and I believe the management plan sets out that the owner would be nearby to address any immediate issues.
And one more question, Chair. It says here that assume that many local users will be local and will walk to use the paddock rather than drive. But given all the other public footpaths around there and the fact that the locals, by definition, know the area well and walk their dogs in different places, when you were talking to the applicant on this application, what evidence did they give you that they've got a demand for this when there's a similar facility nearby that is underused?
The supporting statement submitted by the applicant and agent sets out their demand, but it doesn't, from memory, it doesn't go into fine details. I don't believe that's up to us to give weight to, whether there's a demand or not, as it will be private commercial use. If there's no demand, then perhaps the use would cease early, or if there is heavy demand, then that would be managed through the booking system. I'm not sure if Sarah, if you have any further comments to make on that point.
Yeah, I concur with what the officer just said. The demands for the use of this will be down for the person running it, if it is implemented subsequent to getting permission, and it would be reasonable to assume if there is no demand, then the use would cease.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you. And a sort of follow-up to Councillor Crossley's point or question. I'm a little bit confused as to how the trip generation worked. I've read through the report, and for the highways assessment, it looks to me as if you're saying that you dealt with the trip generation, which seems to come from the management plan. And so I'm not sure whether you took as your basis for the number of trips the assertion that people would walk their dogs there for free through the public footpaths and then decide they were suddenly going to pay to go and walk around a field when they got there, or whether they would most likely come by car.
Yeah, I think having reviewed the management plan and some awareness of how dog parks work, you could only access the site by booking in advance. So it's not a case of turn up and pay. You'd have to actually book online or book direct with the operator. So, and the slots are hourly through the day, but they're 50-minute slots. So it's not as if there could be more than one event per hour, person event per hour. So that's how you can work out how many trips there would be throughout the day and how there wouldn't be any conflict, because each session would be only 50 minutes in length. So you'd ensure that the field is clear, because clearly you don't want two sets of dogs who necessarily, you go to a dog park for a reason, potentially you don't want to mix with other dogs. So the field has to be clear, and then the next group arrives. So it's sort of turnover, a maximum of one an hour through the day, and it could be no more than that.
Thank you.
Councillor Horsell?
Can I just confirm whether there's a cap on the total number of dogs per 50-minute slot? Am I right in thinking it was 6 from the report? Or would there be more?
You are correct.
Okay, so
I've written into my report. I don't have the copy of the management plan in front of me, but in my report I've referred to a maximum of 6.
So on that basis, what we could be seeing is one vehicle, a large van from a professional dog walker turning up on the field with 6 dogs, or could we see 6 individuals with the dogs, therefore 6 cars?
I'm actually uncertain on that point. My apologies.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, the reasoning behind my question is, would we have 6 individuals booking for a 50-minute slot, or would it be, essentially one individual or a team, walking the 6 dogs with one vehicle? Okay. We've not got a clear answer on that one. But just regarding the management plan, if I could just ask a second question. How are we hooking that on to enforcement, in terms of the hours of operation, ensuring that, we don't get an excessive number of dogs within the certain slots? I'm seeing we've got condition 2, which is plans list compliant, but scrolling down to the plans list, I can't see any reference to the management plan. So how are we going to be able to enforce any breaches of the management plan?
That should have been included in the update report circulated earlier this week.
Thank you.
It's not on the statement I have printed out, because I printed out a pre-update version, but it is a proposed condition to ensure compliance with the management plan.
Okay, thank you. That's given me the reassurance I need.
Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. Ian's just clarified that point for me. Thank you. I just wanted to... there's mention of a badger set. Is that actually on site, or how close is that to the sites?
Bear with, sorry, let me just bring up my notes for that relevant section. I haven't clarified that in my report, so I can't provide you with an exact location of that, I'm afraid. All I can confirm is that the Protected Species Survey was undertaken. Our ecology team are happy with the results, subject to compliance, compliance conditions, and similarly B&G information is found acceptable as well. But at the moment I can't locate the badger set for you, I'm afraid.
So there's a condition that will mitigate any harm to the badgers, all their movements, etc. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McPhee?
Yes.
What evidence could you provide that the noise of the dogs will be acceptable to people living 50 metres away?
So it wasn't considered proportionate to request a noise assessment in this case. It was found that the management plan was suitable to address anything that was found to be unacceptable once in use. It was our opinion that the levels of noise activity wouldn't be so dissimilar from the users of the public footpaths nearby, dogs barking in residential gardens nearby. But again, the management plan provides us with comfort that unacceptable noise can be addressed as and when.
Councillor Jackson? Yes, Councillor Chastity, yes.
Thank you. I can't see terribly well. There's a reference in the officers' papers to this being all right because there's a field nearby which is used for car parking for the airport. I was a bit... I can't quite understand this. Is the argument that this is a reasonable development because it's near the airport, or is it saying the greenbelt is already polluted because there are all these cars coming to this field that's used for parking? And I thought in any case there was being clamped down on those kind of businesses. So that's the first question. What's the relevance of that reference? Second question, we've got quite a substantial sort of shelter here, haven't we? Does that not count as an unsuitable development in the greenbelt? I mean, unless I thought you couldn't put that sort of accommodation up in the greenbelt unless it was for agricultural purposes, and I don't think dog walking is an agricultural purpose. And thirdly, I can't quite see how this can be defined as a sustainable location. Should we be applying the same principles that we did in the previous application?
So, starting with your point about the field shelter and the greenbelt, where the building is on skids, it is a movable building. It's not fixed into place. Courts have set out some tests for us to determine if something is even development or not. Where a structure like this is movable, it's not fixed into place, it fails the definition of a building, so it's not development to assess as such, although that might sound strange. Alternatively, if it was to be fixed in place, we would have to then dive into that and give that consideration. It wouldn't automatically be unacceptable, as sport and recreation or appropriate facilities for sport and recreation is something that can be acceptable in the greenbelt. So that's how that's been considered so far. Where this is movable, it is not considered development. I would have to ask for clarification on your point about the airport, sorry. Could you forward me to the right section, sorry? The location of the development is rural, but the use is not something that would be unacceptable in a rural location. I can appreciate you might have concerns about cars coming to and from it, but we have not determined that to be harmful in terms of ST1 and ST7 in this case. Principal development is found to be acceptable in the greenbelt, acceptable in terms of agricultural land, and acceptable as sport and recreational facilities. As far as the airport location goes, the settlement to the northwest shown on the map here, that's to Magna. I don't know the exact measurement of the distance to the airport from there.
Just as a point of information, if I may, Chair, I'm just wondering whether the reference to the airport is raised by a third party?
That is what we were going to say, actually. We think that is the case. It's not really relevant to the application before you.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you want to update on the management plan, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to come back to update or to clarify some of the points that have been raised in the debate, because I've actually got access to the management plan here. So in terms of the number of dogs or people going to the site, whether they could whether there could be several people or with individual dogs, what the management plan actually says is that dog walkers will book and pay for sessions in advance via an online booking system. It says one booking will be made per session and each session will be 50 minutes long. Given that only one booking can be made per session, that would indicate that it couldn't be multiple persons of individual dogs. The plan actually goes on to say the purpose of one booking per session is that this aims to ensure that dogs from different parties do not meet. So I think the management plan is fairly clearly indicating that different parties cannot, under those terms, book, and therefore it might be possible for one person with 6 dogs to use the site, but not 6 people with 1 dog. I just perhaps ought to just clarify as well, in terms of waste management, there is something within the management plan that says collections will be made by a registered waste carrier. I don't know if that helps.
Councillor Malloy.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going back to the number of dogs that, and, you know, possible noise nuisance. Looking at the management plan, it's all there, as you say, 1 booking per session. However, we don't know, you know, that could mean it's 1 dog per hour throughout the day, or it could mean 6 dogs each hour throughout the day. And the other thing is, slightly find a bit confusing, it says the paddock will be for private hire only, but then in point 4.5, number of dogs per session will be limited to 6, full stop, ensuring that local commercial dog walkers can make use of the facility. So that looks to me as if you could have, you know, up to 6 dogs from different homes, as it were, being walked around the field. So that seemed to me a bit like, perhaps somebody can explain that to me, but, you know, saying it's for private hire and then at the same time saying it's going to be open to commercial dog walkers to hire and use.
I might be able to clarify it a little bit there. I don't think those 2 things are mutually exclusive. You know, your local dog walker or dog walking service can take multiple dogs up and down fields or to the local park. Those individuals would be able to book and take the 6 dogs from different households to the park, so 1 person and 6 dogs potentially. Those services are, again, private commercial businesses. If dogs were to have issue with one another, my assumption is that a sensible dog walker would take those in different sessions themselves. So we can be fairly confident that, you know, any commercial users of this commercial space would have already vetted the dogs.
Councillor Hughes, very briefly, please.
It's very brief. I just wanted to clarify the issue of the airport parking was made by residents and the parish council about the adjacent field is being used as airport parking and contributes to the amount of traffic already in that area. So that was the point of the airport parking.
Sarah?
Just to respond, thank you, Councillor Hughes. That would be material to the consideration, not necessarily the distance from the airport, but the proximity of that parking would be material.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anybody else who wants to ask more questions. There's now a debate. Somebody? Councillor Warren.
Yeah, happy to kick off, Chair. It's a funny one, this one. I don't often like agricultural land being used for anything else, but it's a small bit of land. I've actually found it's just about 1.5 acres, which is a football pitch and a half for anyone that's not a farmer. The kind of size of a bit of land that it's nice to have, but you're not going to produce grain or anything, put it that way. So it'd be one of those things that you run your few show cows or, you know, tinkering, you bring your few sheep around. There was comments made, objections about dogs barking, upsetting local sheep, aborting, etc., 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 which is potentially could happen, but it's more likely to happen if the dog's free on the footpath and chasing the sheep, which can happen a lot, as somebody who's got a few sheep can attain to. So I don't know. It's one of those things. It's a lot of people bought dogs in lockdown that maybe shouldn't have bought them at the time, but they did. So you've got the dogs, and you've got a dog that wants to run around. Actually, you can't just loose it in the field and let it run. So there is a place for these dog runs free, where they can have a run. However, they will run and they will bark and will make a noise. And there was a few concerns about having mixed dogs. I don't think you'll get that. If you're a dog walker, you're getting 6 strange dogs. You're not going to let them all run together and fight each other because you're not going to get any work again. So it's all fairly commercial. And if you're going on your own, and there's other dogs in there, you're just not going to let your dogs in to run with the other dogs. They're going to be, so all that I think will be self-policed. So I don't think there's an issue with that. However, would I want to live next door to it? I don't know. That's the honest truth. So well, I've got footpaths around my field, and I love for one of these to be in the close vicinity, so people didn't let the logs run off in my field when I got livestock in there. You have horses and sheep, and so I'd love to see them fenced in somewhere so they couldn't do that. So I guess I'm not going to move anything at the moment. I'm probably tending towards going with the officer's recommendation here.
Nothing's moved at the moment. Councillor Gourley.
I think I agree with Councillor Warren. Just thinking about the villages where dog poo and dog poo disposal is a real problem, particularly on village recreation grounds. I think having something like this where actually the waste is going to be disposed of rather than some volunteers, as happens in some of our villages, I think is a good thing. And actually enabling dogs to exercise in an area, which means they might not exercise on the local fields or recreation grounds, I think is also potentially a good thing. So I suppose I'm coming along with Councillor Warren's idea that this is actually a good idea.
Okay, I've got a number of speakers. I still have no motion on the table yet. Councillor Horsall.
I think I might be in a position to put a motion forward to support the officer's recommendation. I'm following on from Councillor Warren and Councillor Gourley's comments. We are concentrating dogs in a specific designated area, which takes pressure off the public footpath network, private areas, and also, public open space. The management plan is the critical aspect of this, and obviously, we are given the reassurance about the number of dogs, the movement of vehicles, the time frames, the hours of operation. The noise issue, I would agree with the officer. It's no different to if someone have a dog in their garden. If dogs are coming collectively as one party, then these dogs are going to be getting on, and they're not going to be fighting in the field, for example. Equally, it is an enterprising operation. It's promoting a small business. But I do agree with Councillor Hughes on the point he makes about the agricultural designation. Obviously, the officer has acknowledged that it's 3A, and the MPPF refers to 1, 2 and 3A as being the highest quality, but our own local plan doesn't refer to 3A. Now, obviously, we take the local plan into consideration first, and then material considerations. The MPPF is the most up-to-date document, so we do have to put focus on that. But I think on balance, the officer's reached the right recommendation, I believe. And because by virtue of the fact that the land could revert back to agricultural use in the future.
I've got a motion to approve. Now, do I seconder? Councillor Gourley's going to second. Councillor Horsall. Councillor Gourley seconded. Oh, you spoke up.
I put forward the motion to support it.
I apologise, yes. Councillor McPhee.
I'm perfectly in favour of these places, but you've got to put them in the right place, and this one's in the wrong place. I've been on to AI, had a look, and AI is very clear that you will disturb people with dogs up to at 100 metres. I tested it at 100 metres, and we're going in at 50. So there's no way I can pass this.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. This is the third of these applications we've seen, and generally, I've got dogs. I'm in favour of these secure areas in the right place, and I know of two that are in the right place, and they're very good. I'm going to park to one side the issue of land classification. That's something that perhaps the council need to look at, the disparity between our policy and NPPF. Overall, the main issue is a loss of amenity for the residents that live close by. You've got a yard that's got, for 13 hours a day, 6 dogs potentially, 13 hours potentially barking. It's not like your neighbour's dog, where you can go and have a word with your neighbour and say, could you stop your dog barking? Are you going to go there 13 times to say, sorry, but your dogs are ruining my life? Or do you use the complaints procedure, which is an online procedure through the booking system. So what do you do? 13 times a day go onto the online booking and put in a written complaint through that. There's no complaints procedure by telephone here. So the overall issue here is the loss of amenity for me. There are other issues, I feel. I don't think it's sustainable. The access here is purely by car, realistically. It could be, although it's only single bookings, it's quite possible you can book for a group of friends. You could turn up with anything up to 6 cars to do that. So sustainability is a concern of mine. The lack of toilet facilities is also a concern. So overall, I'm not supportive of this application.
Councillor Malloy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not very happy about the fact that the field is considered to be of good could be used for agricultural purposes, and also the fact that I think most people will arrive by car. We should remember that Paws Up is a commercial business to value dog adventures and training, and I suspect, I mean, I shouldn't be speculating here, but I think this, if passed, this field will be used principally by them. So there will be probably larger numbers of dogs on the field each hour, and so I'm a bit wary. I think I don't want to encourage people to be driving places to walk their dogs, basically. But thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Chair, I was going to, of course, propose the opposite to what the officer said. I'm afraid we can't assume that all dog walkers are responsible people who will pick up the rubbish from their dog and put it safely in a bin. In the areas in Westfield, because it's not just villages, small villages that have this problem, on the 2 parish council recreation grounds, we have continual problems with dogs that are let off their lead, gallop round, loads of small children playing, and it's a highly dangerous situation. And we've had the dog warden out several times to try and educate the public. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that we have these recreation grounds where dogs are meant to be kept on leads because of the children playing and the hygiene question. We also bought 6 fields along the waterside where we do allow and encourage dogs to be let off the lead if they want to. But we're having difficulty finding a company that will empty the dog bins. So it's not as easy as stated in these papers to get the dog bins emptied, because the contractors just don't want the job, to be quite honest. Finally, the noise. I have an allotment at Hayden. These professional dog walkers arrive behind the Q Club, park up by the allotments, let the dogs out, who then try and get in the allotments. They get rounded up and herded onto the Hayden batch, and the noise is considerable. And I really think that the loss of amenity, because this facility is a good idea, it's just simply in the wrong place, is one that we should take very seriously. So I'll be voting against them.
Councillor Warren, very briefly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And this has been an interesting discussion, actually, and one I was quite open with, which is why normally I'll go straight in and move recommendation, but didn't this time. And I think Councillor Howell summed it up well. Councillor Howell over there sounded up with me. And I know when I was making my first statement, I did say that I thought it was a great idea, but I wouldn't want it next to me. And I think he probably summed up the reason why, to be honest with you.
Okay, no more members want to speak. I'm going to bring Sarah James in now, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify for the purpose of the vote, there's a motion on the table to permit the management plan is included in an update report, so can it be permit subject to the inclusion of the conditions in the update report if members wish that condition to be added?
Chair, I'm happy for that.
Okay, fine. We're now going to vote on permit. Those in favour? 4 in favour. Those against? That's a greater number. It's not carried. We now need a motion that I'll table, my understanding is. Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that we refuse the application.
As a seconder, Councillor McPhee. Do we need debate? No, we're on a motion to refuse now. Those in favour?
We need the reasons.
Oh, reasons for refusal, please, Councillor Hughes.
Well, I think obviously the main one is the loss of amenity. I think that's probably the most important one. I don't know. I have various concerns about sustainability of the sites as well. I have issues over the land classification, but the overriding issue is the loss of amenity to the local residents.
Thank you. Now the reasons now. A seconder, okay for that? Okay. Now we move to the vote now. Motion to refuse. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. We'll now move on to the last item on the agenda, which is 41 Bloomfield Rise. Angus, do you want to present your report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, last planning item on the agenda. So we're at 41 Bloomfield Rise, Bloomfield in Bath, for the installation of side and rear dormers. Just to preface this, I was not the case officer for this application. I'm covering for a colleague, so I'll do my best to answer your questions today. The application site here outlined in red is the end of terrace property, highlighted number 41. Adjacent to the cricket club. The contextual image here, just to place this is Froome Road at the bottom here, so the main road for Rush Hill, and then Bloomfield Road, which brings us down towards Wells Way. So existing and proposed elevations for the front. The main difference you can see is the inclusion of the side dormer, where it follows the ridge height and it follows the hip rafters of the property as well, forming a flush connection, and the addition of the roof lights on the front. On the rear, you can see the rear dormer as well, and the side profile again of that side-facing dormer window, and then elevations of the side as well. I've only included one floor plan today, which is the proposed second floor plan, which shows the side dormer facilitating the staircase, the cupboard and part of the ensuite, and the rear dormer, again, the rest of the ensuite and floor space for the bedroom itself. And a contextual image from Google Earth, just to show the property within a little bit of its context. The application site is this one in the centre of the frame here. So the dormer would be on this, the side dormer would be on this elevation, and the rear dormer would be on the elevation away from us. So this one is recommended for refusal for the reasons set out in the officer's report.
Thank you. Can I actually bring forward Tim Brind? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Is that on? Yeah. Thank you. I'm Tim Brind, and my family needs this extra bedroom space, not for convenience, but for our son. He has developmental needs, and I currently work from home in his bedroom. Restoring that space is essential for his nighttime care and development, precisely the kind of inclusive living that I believe policy supports. So my motivation is obviously personal, and I appreciate the committee's policy, and where possible, this design sits below the ridge. It uses matching materials, and it avoids expanding the footprint, just the kind of small, well-matched change the local policy supports. The officer calls it dominant and incongruous, yet dormers more visible on main roads and next to a school have been approved, meaning visibility alone doesn't equal harm. I recognise the officer offered informal advice that larger dormers might not be achievable, and he suggested exploring extensions instead. But I also believe that the planning system can explore ideas through proper assessment and not discourage them in advance. The MPPF and SD1 expects a solution-focused approach, and twice, in good faith, I have refined designs and supported with detailed evidence to enable exactly that. Furthermore, the officer's interpretation appears to contain factual inconsistencies. The rear dormer does sit slightly below the ridge, and both dormers terminate at the wall plates, leaving a row of tiles below, indicating they do not oversail the eaves. The officer's report describes the site as highly visible, claiming dormers beside the cricket ground are discreetly located or obscured. Now, from living in my house and as a cricket club member and regular user, I see daily that other dormers nearby are clearly visible from the same cricket ground and not obscured in the way the report implies. If their visibility didn't count as harmful, then prominence alone can't automatically count against this proposal either. On page 68 of your committee pack, the officer dismisses local precedents as being different in context, and I would argue those differences are marginal, not fundamental. For example, 11 Bloomfield Drive was approved despite a non-subservient side dormer and visible location justified by nearby trees. In my case, the cul-de-sac itself provides even less exposure. 52 Bloomfield Drive, an improved non-subservient side dormer joined to a rear. My dormers connect out of necessity, structural necessity, not ambition. So, if a non-subservient side dormer can be accepted, applying a strict test to mine despite lower visibility raises questions about consistency in design implementation. So to conclude, I'm not asking for an exception today, but for consistency. The design is aligned to policy, it's carefully considered, and it reflects a real family need. Similar or more prominent dormers have been approved nearby. If small adjustments or conditions can secure approval, I would welcome them today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Hedges, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to advise everybody that I had a bit of a DIY accident last night and I got a splinter of wood in my eye and I spent 4 hours at the RUH and the sight's a bit blurry, so I might ask you to bear with me if that's okay. Anyway, on to the subject matter. When the applicant came to meet us at our ward surgery, we were struck by, one, the detailed research the applicant had done in support of his application, two, the significant lack of a continuity on a voice decision-making on dormer windows, extensions and similar in the immediate area of the application. 3, the application has demonstrated a sustained willingness to cooperate with the planning officers across 2 previous application stages, both of which were withdrawn in good faith to address specific concerns. It is our opinion that precedent for similar developments has been demonstrated, both side and rear dormers and hip to gable conversions, already approved within the same street and wide locality. Basically, half that street has dormers and the other half hasn't. Importantly, the proposed scheme has less prominent in visual impact than several existing permissions. It is more exposed, in more exposed locations, including properties adjacent to the public institutions and main roads. The applicant's property sits in a quiet cul-de-sac and the proposed design is proportionate, coherent with the character of the host dwelling and consistent with planning policies CP6, D2, D5 and relevant provisions of the NPPF regarding contextual and high quality design. We struggle to see unacceptable harm to the character and appearance of the host dwelling surrounding area by this applicant and feel that this is overstated and not consistent with other similar houses in the area. We urge the Planning Committee to consider the nature of the housing in the area. It is not Georgian heritage. The area is already a diverse range of extensions and dormers to other properties, and to note the limited impact to other properties this application would have. Please apply a proportionate approach to the plan application. And just to finish, this council goes on about keeping families in family houses, but we're constantly stopping them from doing that when officers turn down applications like this when it's obvious that other properties in that area have the same sort of thing? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges. Questions for officers, please. Nobody? Oh, Councillor Horsell.
Yeah, thank you. It's sort of a technical question about the General Permitted Development Order. I know that within Bath, because we're a World Heritage Site, any dormer window needs planning permission, but if it wasn't a WHS, a rear dormer wouldn't. So if we just take away that fact for a minute, when we're talking about, well, obviously we're going to talk later about the aesthetics. If we weren't in a World Heritage Site, is it by virtue of the fact that the side gable is being added really the main reason why planning permission would be required? Obviously, I appreciate the rear dormer needs permission anyway, but would that be the case?
My understanding is that it is both elements, just reading from the officer report, where the referred to dormer does not sit subserviently upon the roof slope. It's not set down from the ridge or in from the hips, and it would read as a dominant addition, and the original characteristic hipped roof of the dwelling no longer legible. The provision of the roof light on the front and the lack of windows in the side would add to its incongruity. The officer hasn't separated the individual pieces to say one would be acceptable and one would not be, so we're assessing the proposal as a whole.
Sarah, please.
If I just can clarify as well, it says in the reason for refusal that the proposed side and rear dormers would be highly visible, so it goes on to talk about both. If the officer thought that only one of those was unacceptable, the reason for refusal would only mention the one.
Councillor Jackson.
They say that as you get older, you can remember things in the past more clearly. I am pretty sure it's not very far, this particular application number, it's not very far from a similar one we saw, did a site visit, refused it, and the planning inspector overturned what we had decided. Though in that case, I think if I remember rightly, there was an HMO question involved as well, but I do think it is unfortunate, or do you not consider it unfortunate that we don't have a specific SDP policy on dormer windows, that they can only be such a size or such a proportion of the roof surface or what or not, but we haven't got one, have we? And I think the World Heritage Site policies is a rather slender thing to hang a policy on, hang a refusal on.
I'm sure you meant SPD, Councillor Jackson, not STP. SPD. That's your days with Shirley Williams years ago. I know that. Okay. Any more questions? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. As a lot of the report seems to be talking about using other developments as a precedent for this one, can you confirm, are the ones that are being compared with, are they quite new, or are they part of it, are they historic and we've got new policies since then?
Those specifically referred to in the report date between 2021 and 2016, so that depends on your definition of new. Our policies from then are still relatively consistent with what they used to be, as it was at the time, the placemaking plan, but now we have the local plan partial update. My understanding of the character and appearance policies is that they are pretty consistent with what they used to be, so there hasn't been a substantial shift in our policy since the referenced approvals.
Councillor Gawley.
A question about that photograph. The house immediately opposite, has it not got a dormer at the back?
If that's a question for me, yes. So this one down here is a rear dormer within the middle of the terrace rather than on the end of the terrace. I'm unsure if that specific one was one referenced in the report, but it plays into your breakdown of the established character in this area and what weight you would give to that.
Any further questions? No, but it's open for debate. Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is one of those, I think that these sort of kind of applications will all become more and more common for the reason that there's home working for one, so it needs a little bit more space. And B, it's expensive to move house there. You might think, okay, you want an extra room, why don't you move to a bigger house? Within the way the stamp duty is now, I think the cost is going to be prohibitive for a long, long time. To me, this makes good use of what you have there. If you have a look at the picture, there's no shortage of dormers, to be honest with you. And personally, I quite like a dormer. And I think the applicant here, they're showing the creativeness to make use of what they have to fit into to what they need in life for themselves and the family. They obviously live in the area, like the area, and it means they can stay in the area and actually have what they want. So I'm very happy to move that we overturn the officer's recommendation and allow the application.
Can I have your reasons for overturning, please, Councillor Warren?
Do you need them? I think I said enough. I think there's no reason not to allow it. The dormers, there are plenty of dormers, so there's going to be no harm to it, and it means that the residents can basically remain where they are. I'm not sure that's a planning application, a planning decision, but I just think there's an increase of residential amenity. Does that help?
Have a seconder, please.
Yeah, I'll second that, and I'll help Councillor Warren out there with why I feel it should be overturned. I've seen worse. I used to work in Swindon. Not that I'm no disrespect to Swindon, but what I mean is they've got a lot of 20th century housing stock, very similar to that there. So, yes, I will second it. I don't believe that it will have a detrimental effect on the appearance of the house or the surrounding area.
Councillor Jackson?
Well, I was going to second and offer more or less the same frame of words, so it's not inconsistent with the character and design of the majority of houses in the area.
Councillor Collins?
Yes, I support the motion. I think that there is, in this case, we are putting a lot of weight, or the office is putting a lot of weight on the fact that the door is visible because it's an end of terrace. But of course, the concomitant thing is that it has no impact whatsoever on any of the neighbouring properties, and therefore it doesn't seem to me personally to be out of character with the area. And it seems, therefore, a perfectly reasonable thing for the applicant to bring forward.
Councillor Malloy?
Thank you. Yeah, in principle, I don't object. However, I do think that it will affect the street view, as it were, because it is on the end of the terrace. What interests me, and I'm probably too late to ask the question now, is what is the real difference between this application and the previous one? Because I just had a look, and I can't see a huge difference, but which was withdrawn. So obviously there were some changes made. So from the kind of the human point of view, I support this, but at the same time I'm not altogether happy about it. However, I have to say that the residential amenity, as you say, would not be an issue because there's plenty of space around and about, and I note that in the report there are no objections because of it being a World Heritage Site, because it's not going to, affect the skyline or anything in that way. So I'm still undecided, basically.
Councillor Crossley.
Chair, we frequently have these, and it's frequently the case that this committee reaches a different conclusion to the officer recommendation on dormers. Therefore, I think what is quite clear is that we need our policy side of the council to review this as a matter of urgency and see if our policy is correct or if it does need changing. Because, again, I support this. I support dormers in roofs because it adds space, it keeps, and as Councillor Warren says, moving is very expensive, especially if you've got a community and you've got your kids at schools and you're settled. You don't necessarily want to move. And the easiest way is to add a bedroom to the house you're already in, which takes pressure off other land that would need to be developed to fill those houses in. So I support this, but I also think that we need to approach our policy colleagues and ask them to get this policy reviewed as a matter of urgency, because we frequently come to a different conclusion to the officer recommendation on dormers.
Thank you, Councillor Crossley. I don't see more speakers in the room. We have a motion to permit. Those in favour, please. That's unanimous. That's permitted. We now move on to appeals report. That is for noting.
Chair, if I could just make a comment, as I did earlier, about Hartleywood in Clutton. I really was, having spoke to Sarah, I understand the rationale, but I really was very shocked when I saw the overturn of this committee's decision. 8 units in a highly unsustainable location that's completely car-dependent, and that's something we need to take on board, as we did with the Stowey property, Stowey site, in future.
Councillor Crossley.
Yeah, again, I'd like to think that as a committee we need to commend our planning department for the good work they do, notwithstanding my disagreement on the last policy. But again, once again, as in month in, month out, we see that the inspector is largely agreeing with us. And again, we've got a 7-3 ratio this month, which is about par for the course. So we need to just get that to 10-0, but that should be an aspiration that we all want to work towards and get the inspectors agreeing with us completely.
Okay, we happy to report? Yes, everybody? Councillor Jackson, do you want to come in? What will we do?
Chair, I just wanted also to commend the officers for their success at appeals, and that they shouldn't be nervous of, taking an appealable decision, because I'm quite sure this committee would support them in any way that was feasible or appropriate if it comes to a hearing or whatever. I note, though, that we have had a little dip in applications decided, and we had one here that was way out of time. Is this because of short staff, or, does it reflect the churn in management? I know all our officers work very hard, but they can't do 2 people's work at once very easily, and I'm grateful to the officer for taking up the reins in the absence of his colleague this afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Are we happy to note report? Yes, everybody? Yes? Okay. The next one's a quarterly performance report, 1st of April, 30th of June. Do any members have any questions on the report? Councillor Crossley.
Again, I personally see all this as more good news, but one thing I've asked for in the past, but it never seems to come forward, is some sort of comparison table about how we're doing versus our neighbours in the southwest. I think that would be quite useful information for us to know, so that we know whether we're performing very well or not very well in comparison to our cohort of neighbours. So if that, again, if I could request that, if it's easy to get some sort of table that compares us with our direct neighbours, would be helpful to me, if to no one else.
I think that's been noted. Councillor Crossley. Councillor Collins.
Yes, I didn't hear a response to Councillor Jackson's question about the slight dip-off, and it is only a slight one, but there is a dip in the number of planning applications in time, which is on the report. I think that was what was being asked. Was there anything systemic behind that, or is it just unfortunate?
I'll come back in on that. So over a short period of time, it is quite difficult to really know. We do monitor performance across the departments on a regular basis. Broadly speaking, just to respond to Councillor Crossley, we perform very well in terms of neighbouring authorities. In fact, we are usually the best performers, I would say. We can obviously be clearer about that with some tabled information, which we will provide. We have some new recruitment and some further officers joining us, but there's nothing specific that I can point to. There is a little bit of up and down with regards to applications, and we do monitor it and take a an assessment over a longer period to see if there are any trends that we need to be concerned about, but I can't really say that there are any in particular.
Thank you. We're happy with the report. Noted. The next meeting will take place on 27th and 28th of August 2025. Any site business be on the